Hi girls. Okay, we are going to talk about cycle syncing today, and it's a very appropriate time for me to talk about it because I am on day 3 of my period, and it's like fresh in my mind how a lot of women feel during the tail end of their luteal phase, especially, and then into like the first few days of their bleed. So I thought we could address this because I see a lot about it on social media. I see a lot about the pros and cons, and I just think it's a very confusing kind of topic for a lot of people that are like, should I be doing this? And, coming from someone that's an integrative health practitioner, someone that is like very holistically minded, really sees a person for everything about their health, not just they have a weight loss goal, or whatever it is. Like, I really want to prioritize hormonal health above almost all else. Hormonal health, gut health, and then mental health too. So kind of taking, all of that into account, here is my educated opinion on it, and I have done some research on it, and I've talked to other professionals about it, and this is kind of where I am at with it. But first, let's do a quick recap, like what the heck is cycle syncing in case you haven't heard about it. So essentially, cycle syncing is when you would follow the natural rhythms of your hormonal cycle and, do certain types of workouts during different phases of your cycle. You would also, we could go into the nutrition part too, but I'm going to save that for like a separate video. But, in the nutrition aspect of this as well, you could eat different foods that would support your body in different phases of your cycle, because we know our hormones are constantly changing throughout the month. So essentially, you're going to do more intense workouts during your follicular and ovulatory phases. That's when you have like the most energy and you feel the best. And then less intense workouts during your luteal phase and your menstrual cycle. So that's 4 weeks, and you would only be working out, fairly hard for 2 weeks out of those 4 weeks. Let's zoom out and look at the 52 weeks in a year. You would only be working out hard 26 weeks out of the year. And that's if, for all 26 of those weeks, you didn't have travel, you weren't sick, injured, too busy. Do you pick up what I'm putting down? Let's say 4 of those weeks you had sickness, injury, travel. We're at 22 weeks out of a 52-week year that you gave it your all in the gym. I don't think I have to say anything more about that. So that's kind of what I'm going to lead with, but I still want to explain it and talk about who it could be beneficial for, because it could be beneficial for certain people. So let's just sum it up. The problem with this is it doesn't allow for enough consistency to make much progress in the gym at all. Like when you're looking at, a program that is like a cycle syncing program, it's literally like, for this week, do, walking, yoga, and Pilates only. For this next week, you could do light weights and, maybe some cardio. The next week, you can definitely push it, do some, hit a PR in the gym, lift heavy, do some high intensity interval training. Like, it's very limited on when you're strength training at all. And that's just not like, coming from a fitness perspective, that just doesn't make sense. But once again, there's different people that this could be really beneficial for. So the benefits of cycle syncing are that it can support your body's natural hormonal rhythms and could potentially improve hormonal imbalances and symptoms like PMS. Like if you have really bad PMS, like super painful periods to the point you're like throwing up, you're on, in bed all day, like not like a normal, oh, I'm pretty tired today, oh, I've got some cramps. Like I'm talking when it's severe to the point you're like popping pills because you need relief from this and you can't go about daily life, you're calling out sick from work, yada yada, then this could benefit you. Like you obviously have something going on internally that needs to be addressed, and that whatever that's going on hormonally could also be impacting your ability to lose fat. So let's talk about kind of piggybacking off of that, like who should seriously consider cycle syncing? Someone who has severe hormonal imbalances, not just like painful periods, but PCOS, endometriosis, those sorts of things. Maybe even like a thyroid condition if it's unmedicated, but once again, it really just, consistent strength training really benefits those things too, because it increases your insulin sensitivity. So, I have thoughts on all of this, but I'm just trying to kind of like, I don't want to make this like, it's the worst thing ever, you shouldn't consider it, because you might want to. So like, who else, sorry, I get so ADD. Who else should consider it is those people with certain hormonal imbalances, whose main goal, or someone whose main goal is prioritizing preconception, or is in the postpartum phase where your hormones are just like super out of whack and you really want to prioritize kind of getting them more balanced again. Or just, if you're just wanting to prioritize hormonal health in general and that's like your main priority over any sort of physique or fitness goal. Like if you really are just doing this thing, you signed up to work with me or whatever it is because you're wanting to prioritize optimal health, and let's say you like feel like your hormones need some support, then this could be something to try. Once again, there's caveats, okay? So who should not consider it? Anyone who is on hormonal birth control really doesn't need to consider this, because your body isn't actually ovulating. Like, your cycles are synthetic, so you don't follow like a natural hormonal rhythm like the people that aren't on hormonal birth control. So you don't need to consider that. Or, someone whose main priority is looking a certain way, i.e. fat loss, muscle gain, or body recomp. Cycle syncing is not going to get you to your goals very quickly. Once again, unless you have like a major hormonal imbalance that's impeding you from accomplishing those physique goals. Or like someone who wants to prioritize just like performance in the gym. You want to do a CrossFit competition, High rocks competition. You want to run a marathon, you want to do a bikini competition. Like if you are really motivated by your performance, or like I said, any physique goals you have, I wouldn't start with cycle syncing. I would not. Or just like someone who doesn't have any clear hormonal imbalances going on, then you don't need to consider this. If you had clear hormonal imbalances going on, you're trying to get blood work done with a doctor, you're working with a functional practitioner, you're reading all the books, like you're like in it, you're invested because something is clearly off in your body hormonally, then I want you to consider cycle syncing. I do, because weightlifting can be really intense. You can make it intense. If you're weightlifting 5 days a week, that's a lot. And especially if you're like trying to push it all the time, it can be a lot on the body. It can, especially if you're under fueling, under recovering, have a lot of stress in your life outside of the good stress like the gym. It could be a lot on your body. It could be really depleting. So those are my caveats. How can you naturally follow your body's natural hormonal rhythms without doing something totally different each week like cycle syncing kind of promotes? So here's what I personally do. Make that week towards the end of your luteal phase, when you're like really starting to feel kind of crappy, into the first few days of your menstrual cycle where you're just like depleted, bloated, exhausted, cranky. Make that your deload week, okay? So this means you're gonna back way off on the weights, limit sets of exercises to like 2 to 3 sets. So like, let's say the program normally says 4 sets of squats, pull it back to 2 or 3 sets. Let's say you're normally lifting 135 pounds for squats, pull it back to 95. Do some higher reps, lighter load. Don't go, how I'm always saying, get within 2 to 3 reps of failure. Nah, not this week. We're kind of just moving to move, keeping, our muscles still obviously like pumped with blood, keeping them still strong, we're really maintaining this week. But we're not pushing it. We're not going for any sort of PRs. We're giving it like 70% effort out of, usually I'm asking for 100, we're giving it like 70%. Also, you could add longer rest periods. You're gonna probably want it. Just naturally, you're gonna be like, I don't wanna do this next set, I'm so tired. It's good, take an extra minute to break. Check an email, whatever. You're gonna have more time anyway because the workout's gonna be shorter because it's less sets. And I would also limit any sort of HIIT. I would limit the spin classes, I would limit the sprints, I would limit the jumpy, crazy boot camp classes. I'd limit it. And then if you're feeling like really low on energy this week, I would add in some yoga, maybe some Pilates, lots of walking. Walking could be your main cardio this week. I wouldn't really do like a bunch of running or anything. So kind of to sum this up, at the end of the day, our body is gonna do its thing. There will be days we feel incredible and ready to smash some new PRs, and there will be days we can hardly get through our usual workout. And this is normal. This is to be expected, and we just have to keep in the back of our mind at all times, honestly at the forefront of our minds, that progress is not linear. Let's say it again. Progress is not linear, ever. So maturing in the gym and, in your relationship with fitness and with nutrition is never holding yourself to an unrealistic standard that you're gonna always be progressing, like 1% better every single day. I do like that quote, but like not in the sense of like every single day I'm gonna look a little more ripped and I'm gonna get a little bit stronger and I'm just gonna be a little bit fitter and tighter, because that's not gonna happen. So don't get down on yourself. If there's a day you just have no energy and have a terrible workout and you're like, well, that sucked today, I sucked. You didn't suck. That's just part of life. That's part of the process. Check in on where you're at in your cycle. If you are not someone that's already tracking your cycle, I highly recommend you do that. I love my Oura Ring for this. It's a low EMF fitness tracker. It can sync with the Natural Cycles app. I also, prior to having this, I still use it, is the Flow app. So it's like a super cheap fee every month, and I track my cycle in there. And I always know what part of my cycle I'm in, and I think it's really helpful when you're like, if it's a day you have really low self-esteem, like really poor body image, you're probably in your luteal phase. If it's a day that you're feeling really hot and sexy, you feel like flirting, you feel like going out, being social, you're probably ovulating. If it's a day you want to kill your partner and go live on a remote island alone, you're probably in your luteal phase. So like you'll start to know these things, and it's really helpful to communicate this to others and educate others on this. Like now I tell my husband, it's that time, I'm in my luteal phase, and he's like, okay, good to know. And then he'll just kind of like, laugh when I do something kind of crazy or irrational, and he's like, I know, I love you. You're crazy and I love you. So I highly recommend just getting in tune with your cycle if you are not at all. It really does a lot for like your personal life, your professional life. You can start to like plan important presentations or trips or, just like hangouts around your cycle, because you're going to be like, oh, this week I'm going to be feeling like I don't want to do anything. And this week I'm going to be ready to do all the things. So anyway, sorry, I digress. But I think it's a really important thing that we somehow just like got out of tune with in modern society. So I highly recommend tracking, but let's say you don't know where you're at in your cycle and you have a really crappy workout. Before you start beating yourself up and you're like, oh, I'm regressing. It's because I took a vacation last week, isn't it? I sucked today. I'm 10 pounds weaker in my hip thrust. Go look at your app that you should have downloaded now and see where you're at. And it might explain why you're feeling like poo. So, make extra time for rest and recovery, like period. If you're neglecting that, it is gonna put your hormones out of whack, because when we burn ourselves into the ground, especially as females, it never ends well, my friends. I will touch on this in a separate video, but I really want to stress the importance of not overdoing it. I have been there and I have overdone it purely, mostly for the love and passion of working out and just the goal to always be fitter and better just because it's fun. But also part of it was self-loathing. As much as I didn't want to admit that, it was me always wanting to have a flatter stomach, a bigger butt. I just always wanted to be skinnier. I always wanted to be hotter. And self-loathing, we know, is not productive, but everyone always wants to take it to the extreme. And there's a really healthy place there in the middle. And this is what I'm talking about, caloric deficits, which is why if someone has a time-based goal, I'll be like, sure, let's drop, to a 500 calorie deficit. But if it's someone that's really just trying to like lose the weight for good and keep it off and have a healthy relationship with food and their body and all that, I always do a pretty small deficit to start, because I'm trying to think of how to word this in a concise way. I'm like literally the wordiest person. It's not beneficial to do those extremes, to live in those extremes for long as a woman. It's going to severely deplete our bodies, stress our bodies out. It can absolutely lead to us not getting to our goals. If you're like, how come I do cardio 5 days a week, I walk every single day, and I lift, 3-4 times a week, and I make sure that I eat like super clean, and I'm like only eating like 1,400 calories a day, and I haven't lost a pound. Some of the annoying science nerds on the internet are going to say, well, then you're not in a caloric deficit. Obviously you're not, because you would be losing weight. And I'm going to argue to the death that that's sometimes not true. It could be true because you could be so hungry and you're starving yourself every day, and then on the weekends you completely blow it and binge. Absolutely a factor, because I have been that person. But it could also be, and I've been this person too, your body literally is like fighting for its life. Because yes, exercise-induced stress is good stress. It's like healthy, positive stress. But when you're overdoing it, your hormones are going to be freaking the F out. Your cortisol could spike. Your HPA axis could be like freaking out, especially if you have a stressful life outside of this. If you're a mom, if you're a business owner, if you just are a working mom, if you're just someone that works, if you have, familial stress, relationship stress, like trauma that you haven't dealt with. There are so many external stressors already in our life. And then add in over-exercising and or under-eating. And our body sometimes will just like want to be safe. And you know what's really safe to our body? Fat. Because worst case scenario, if like the world was ending and we couldn't find any food, it's okay because we still have fatty stores in our body, and our body could sustain off of that for a little bit. So I'm sorry guys, this is so long, but I get so excited. So anyway, all this to say, I don't think, stressing over what part of your cycle you're in is going to be the healthiest thing. I think prioritizing hormonal health is so important. And if your hormones are really out of whack and you have tried just a consistent strength training routine for 6 months, consistent, as well as consistent nutrition, and you've felt like crap, your body hasn't changed, you've been feeling really worn out, really under-recovered, and you've made sure that your sleep is optimized, stress is optimized, recovery days are optimized, you're not over-exercising, and you're not under-eating, and you still just feel like poop. And you've got these crazy hormonal symptoms, you got hair growing on your chin, you got moon face, debilitating cramps every month, your tracker's telling you you're not ovulating, like stuff like that, then I think you should try cycle syncing. But like I said, if you really want to optimize hormones, having lean muscle on your body is going to increase your insulin sensitivity. This is incredible for our hormones. And I'm not going to dive into that today because we just hit the 20-minute mark. But having muscle on your body and lifting weights is really amazing for your body. So if you're doing it the right way, it could improve your hormones tenfold, especially if you're eating optimally for hormones as well. I'm going to end it there. Thanks for listening. If you have any other questions or if you have a rebuttal, I'm extremely open-minded. I am always learning, literally always learning. And I would love to hear from your personal experience, any scientific evidence you have, although I've looked at scientific evidence on like both sides because there just is. Any opinions you have, I'd love to hear. All right, take care.